Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Let's begin. Good evening. Good morning. Or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for taking this time to be with us, to sit quietly, and to explore the landscape of your own mind. Today, we are going to talk about something that, without exception, every single one of us has encountered. It is a universal experience, like the changing of the seasons or the pull of gravity. We are going to talk about the energy of difficult people. We often label them with a modern, clinical word, toxic. But let's step back from that label for a moment and just see them for what they are, individuals who, in their interaction with us, leave us feeling drained, anxious, angry, or diminished. They are the clouds that seem to block out our inner sun. You can find these individuals in every corner of your life. Sometimes, and this is the most painful, they are the ones sitting across from you at the dinner table, your own family. A parent whose love feels conditional, a sibling whose words always seem to cut, a partner who chips away at your self-worth. They might be the neighbors whose passive-aggressive comments about your lawn or your dog create a low hum of anxiety every time you step outside. They can be the colleagues who take credit for your work, or the friends who only call when they need something, turning every conversation into a transaction. In one way or another, we are all in a relationship with difficulty. We cannot escape the presence of challenging people. So the question isn't if we will have to deal with them. The question is how. How do we navigate these interactions without becoming a storm ourselves? How do we protect our own peace, our own heart, without building walls of stone that lock us in with our anger? How do we hold the intention to not get hurt, while simultaneously holding the deep, human intention to not hurt others? This is the delicate art we will explore together today. We will not just talk about surviving these encounters. We will talk about mastering them. We will talk about transforming them from moments of suffering into moments of profound strength and clarity. Let's begin by planting a seed of an idea. This idea is the foundation of everything we will discuss. It comes from the core of Buddhist psychology, but you don't need to be a Buddhist to feel its truth. The idea is this: conflict is a gift that you are not required to open. Think about that for a moment. When someone approaches you with anger, with criticism, with manipulation, they are essentially handing you a package. It might be wrapped in loud, aggressive paper, or it might be wrapped in the silky, quiet ribbons of passive aggression. But it is a package nonetheless. It contains their frustration, their pain, their disappointment, their worldview. Our entire lives, we have been trained to reach out and take that package. We feel an almost instinctual obligation to accept it. Someone yells at us, and we feel we must yell back. Someone blames us, and we feel we must defend ourselves. We grab that package, we tear it open, and we let its contents spill all over our inner world. We then spend the next hours, days, or even weeks, trying to clean up the mess. But what if you simply didn't take it? What if you looked at the person extending the gift of their anger, smiled gently, and kept your hands by your side? What happens to that package then? It remains with them. It is their possession, their energy, their problem. This is the secret that lies at the heart of dealing with any difficult person. It is not a technique of avoidance, but a practice of profound self-respect. It is the art of non-acceptance. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this beautifully. This is a story from the old lands, a story that has been passed down through generations. There was once a great and powerful general. He was a man accustomed to winning battles, to having his orders followed without question. His word was law on the battlefield. One day, while traveling through a rural province, he heard of a wise monk who lived in a small temple in the forest. The general, in his arrogance, decided to pay the monk a visit. He didn't go to learn, he went to test. He wanted to prove that his power, the power of the sword and the command, was greater than any so-called spiritual power. He rode his horse right up to the edge of the temple courtyard and dismounted with a heavy thud of his boots. The monk was sweeping the fallen leaves, moving with a slow, deliberate grace. The general strode up to him, his presence a clash of armor and aggression in the peaceful clearing. "Old man," the general boomed, his voice sharp. "I have heard you teach people about peace and patience. I have come to see if it is true." The monk simply looked up, nodded once, and continued sweeping. The general, feeling ignored, felt his anger spike. He stepped closer. "I am going to insult you, old man. I am going to tell you that you are a fraud, that your teachings are useless, and that you are wasting your life in this forest. What will you do then?" The monk leaned his broom against a tree and stood facing the general, his hands folded in front of him. He had a look of serene interest, as if observing a rather energetic cloud. The general took this silence as an invitation. He unleashed a torrent of abuse. He insulted the monk's appearance, his simple robes. He mocked the small, crumbling statues in the temple. He laughed at the idea that anyone could find wisdom in such a place. His words were like arrows, sharp and aimed to wound. The monk stood perfectly still. He didn't flinch. He didn't frown. He looked at the general with the same kind eyes. After a few minutes, the general ran out of words. He was breathing heavily, his face red with exertion, but the monk was as calm as a still pond. The general, now confused, asked, "I insulted you, I yelled at you, and you have nothing to say. Are you a coward? Are you afraid of me?" The monk smiled gently. "General, let me ask you a question. If someone offers you a platter of the most delicious food, but you are not hungry and you do not accept it, who does the food belong to?" The general scoffed. "It still belongs to the one who offered it, of course." The monk nodded. "And if someone offers you a gift of anger and harsh words, and you do not accept them, who do those words belong to?" The general stood there, the truth of the words washing over him. He had come to the temple carrying a heavy load of arrogance and aggression. He had tried to dump it on the monk, but the monk had simply stepped aside, refusing to carry it for him. The general was left standing there, holding his own heavy burden. For the first time, he truly felt its weight. His shoulders slumped, not from defeat, but from the sudden recognition of his own exhaustion. The monk then picked up his broom. "The path is long, General. It is tiring to carry such heavy things." He gestured to a small bench in the courtyard. "Would you like to sit down for a while, before you continue your journey?" In that moment, the general's anger was gone. It had dissolved, not because it was fought, but because it was not fed. He sat on the bench, and for the first time in his life, he felt the quiet peace of simply being, without the need to fight or prove anything. This, my friends, is the power of non-acceptance. The monk didn't win an argument, he dissolved one. He didn't defeat an enemy, he helped a suffering man see his own burden. If you are finding value in these teachings, in these stories of peace and resilience, please consider subscribing to Monk's Moon Temple. By subscribing, you are not just following a channel, you are making a commitment to your own practice, to returning to this space of calm again and again. It is a way of telling the algorithm, and telling yourself, that this is the kind of mind you wish to cultivate. Please take a moment now to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon, so you never miss a chance to sit with us. Now, let's look at this mechanism through the lens of modern psychology. Why is it so hard to not accept that package? Why does our hand instinctively reach out to grab it? It comes down to a tiny but powerful structure in your brain called the amygdala. Its job is to scan for threats. In the ancient savanna, a threat was a lion in the tall grass. Your amygdala would trigger a fight or flight response, flooding your body with cortisol and adrenaline, getting you ready to either battle the lion or run for your life. Today, the lion is not in the grass. The lion is a comment from your boss, a text from an ex-partner, or a snide remark from a family member. But your amygdala doesn't know the difference. When someone attacks you with words, your amygdala perceives a survival threat. It hijacks your brain. The blood rushes away from your prefrontal cortex, the thoughtful, wise, decision-making part of your brain, and goes to your limbs. You literally cannot think straight. You are on autopilot, ready to fight. This is why reacting in the moment is so dangerous. You are not reacting as the wise, compassionate person you want to be. You are reacting as a scared animal protecting its territory. When you yell back, you are not being strategic, you are being biological. You are letting a tiny, primitive part of your brain run the show. The practice of non-acceptance, of putting on a gentle smile and staying silent, is a practice of reclaiming your brain. It is telling your amygdala, thank you for your concern, but I am safe. This is just noise. I will not let you drive the car right now. By not reacting, you give your prefrontal cortex time to come back online. You give yourself the space to choose your response instead of being a slave to your reaction. The toxic person is trying to trigger your amygdala. They know, consciously or unconsciously, that if they can get you into a fear state, they can control you. They can make you dance to the tune of their anger. Your only job, your only power, is to not dance. You simply stand still while the music of their anger plays. Eventually, the song ends. The Buddha described this beautifully. He didn't talk about amygdalas, but he talked about fire. He said the mind is constantly on fire. It is burning with the fire of greed, the fire of hatred, and the fire of ignorance. When a person is angry, they are on fire. They are burning from the inside. Their thoughts are flames, their words are sparks. They come to you, not because they want to hurt you, necessarily, but because they are in pain. They are burning, and they are looking for something else to catch fire. Misery loves company, not because it is malicious, but because shared pain feels less lonely. An angry person wants you to burn with them. They want to hand you their fire. If you take their fire, if you grab it with your own hands, you will burn too. You will become a part of their forest fire. You will be consumed by the same flames of hatred and frustration. But if you are cool, if you have cultivated the coolness of compassion and inner peace through practices like mindfulness and loving kindness, then when they hand you their fire, something else happens. You don't burn. You receive the fire, and your coolness tempers it. In the story, the monk was cool. The general's fire came close, but there was nothing in the monk that was combustible. There was no gasoline of ego for the spark to land on. So the fire died out on its own. This is your practice. To become so cool, so deeply peaceful within yourself, that you are no longer flammable. When a toxic person comes with their matches and their gasoline, they can try all they want, but they will find nothing to ignite. They will eventually tire themselves out and move on, leaving you in your peace. Let me share another story to illustrate this principle of inner coolness. Imagine two students living in a monastery high in the mountains. They were brothers in practice, but very different in temperament. One was naturally calm and quiet, the other was quick to judge and easily irritated. One day, the irritable student heard a rumor that the calm student had spoken ill of him to the master. He felt a hot rush of anger. He stormed down the stone corridor to the calm student's small room, pushed open the door, and found his brother meditating by the window. "Is it true?" the irritable student demanded, his voice shaking. "Did you tell the master that my practice is lazy? Did you mock my efforts?" The calm student opened his eyes and looked at his brother. He didn't see an enemy, he saw a friend in pain. "Brother," he said softly, "come. Sit with me for a moment." "I don't want to sit. I want an answer," the irritable student yelled. The calm student didn't argue. He simply stood up, walked to a small shelf, and took down a clean, empty ceramic jar. He handed it to his brother. "Here," he said. "Take this." Confused, the irritable student took the jar. "What is this for?" "Hold it for a moment," the calm student said. Then he walked over to the small kitchen area and returned with a bowl of coarse, gray salt. He took a pinch and dropped it into the jar. "Do you feel that?" he asked. "No," the irritable student said, annoyed. The calm student added another pinch, then another, then a handful. "Now?" he asked. The irritable student shook his head, still holding the jar. "It's just a jar. I feel nothing." Then the calm student took the entire bowl of salt and poured it all into the jar. A small cloud of white dust puffed up. "And now? How does it feel now?" The irritable student looked at the jar. It was full, heavy with salt. "Now," he said, "it feels heavy. I can feel its weight." The calm student smiled gently. "That jar is your mind. The salt is the harsh words and perceived insults you carry. A small pinch, you don't even notice. You let it go. But you have been adding every word, every slight, every rumor to your jar for years. You have filled it to the brim. Now, when I say one thing, when you think I said one thing, it is just one more pinch of salt. But your jar is already full. There is no space. So it spills over. Your anger is not about what I said today. Your anger is the weight of everything you have been carrying for a lifetime. You came here to give me your salt, but your jar is so full you couldn't even lift it to hand it over." The irritable student looked at the jar in his hands. He felt its weight. He understood. The problem was not his brother. The problem was the jar. He had been the one collecting the salt all these years. He had been the one refusing to empty it. He sat down on the floor, the heavy jar in his lap, and for the first time, he didn't feel angry. He just felt tired. And in that tiredness, there was the beginning of peace. Let's bring this into the 21st century. You are at work. You open your email, and there it is. A message from a colleague, CC to your boss. The words are polite on the surface, but you can feel the subtext. It's a public accusation disguised as a question. It's a criticism designed to make you look incompetent. You feel that familiar flush of heat on your neck. Your jaw tightens. You immediately start crafting a response in your head. A brilliant, cutting response that will put them in their place, prove them wrong, and expose their pettiness to the whole team. Stop. Right there. Before your fingers touch the keyboard. Recognize what is happening. Your amygdala has just seen a lion. You are in fight mode. The email is the pinch of salt. But is your jar full? Have you had a history with this person? Are you tired from a bad night's sleep? Are you already stressed about a deadline? That email is just one pinch, but your jar might already be dangerously close to the top. If you respond now, you will not be responding to the email. You will be responding with the accumulated weight of every frustration you've ever had with this person, with your job, with your life. You will overreact. You will pour the entire bowl of salt into the situation. This is where the practice begins. Instead of responding, close the laptop. Or at least, minimize the screen. Take a physical step back from the device. Go get a glass of water. Look out the window. Breathe. Just 3 conscious breaths. Feel the air go in, feel it go out. This is not running away. This is you, gently placing the jar down for a moment to let your hand rest. After 10 minutes, your prefrontal cortex is back online. You can look at the email again. Now, you can see it for what it is, not an attack on your very existence, but a clumsy, perhaps malicious, piece of communication from another suffering human being. Now you have options. You can respond with simple facts. You can choose to have a private conversation. You can even, in some cases, choose to do nothing, knowing that the subtext is their problem, not yours. You have taken the power back from your biology. You have chosen not to accept the gift. There was once a gardener who was famous for his beautiful flower garden. People would travel for miles just to walk through it, to see the vibrant colors and smell the intoxicating fragrances. One day, a young man came to the gardener and asked, "What is your secret? How do you grow such perfect flowers?" The gardener was an old man with dirt under his fingernails and a permanent squint from the sun. He smiled and said, "I don't grow flowers. I grow the soil." The young man was confused. "Grow the soil?" "Yes," the gardener said. "I don't fight the weeds. If I spent all my time pulling weeds, I would have no energy left for the flowers. Instead, I focus on the soil. I enrich it with compost. I water it deeply. I make sure it gets the right amount of sun and air. When the soil is healthy and rich, the flowers naturally want to grow there. They are strong. And the weeds? They still come. Seeds blow in on the wind. But in this rich, healthy soil, the flowers are so strong that the weeds cannot overtake them. They don't compete for space. The flowers just grow, and the weeds become just a small part of a beautiful, diverse garden." He looked at the young man. Most people try to deal with toxic people by weeding them out. They try to argue, to fight, to cut them down. But that is endless work. It keeps you on your knees in the dirt, always angry, always pulling. I say, tend to your own soil. Make your mind so rich with peace, with kindness, with self-respect, that when a toxic person comes along, they are just a small weed in a vast and beautiful garden. They cannot take over, because your garden is too strong. They cannot drain you, because your soil is too rich. They are just a part of the landscape, not the focus of it. This is the deeper practice. It's not just about the moment of conflict. It's about the daily, quiet work of enriching your own inner soil. It's about meditation, about reading good books, about spending time in nature, about nurturing relationships that feed you. When your soil is healthy, you are not afraid of a few weeds. There is a psychological model called the Karpman-Drama triangle. It's a simple but powerful way to understand toxic interactions. The triangle has three roles: the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer. The toxic person often comes in as the persecutor. They are attacking you, blaming you, making you feel small. Their goal is to put you in the role of the victim. If you feel hurt, defensive, and powerless, you are now the victim. But the triangle is dynamic. From the victim position, you might then try to become the persecutor yourself and attack them back. Now you are both persecutors, locked in a battle. Or, a third party might come in to rescue you, which creates another whole set of dynamics. The key to escaping this toxic dance is to refuse to play any of the roles. When someone tries to make you the victim by persecuting you, you don't accept it. You step off the triangle entirely. You become what you might call the creator or the observer. How do you do this? If they are the persecutor, don't become the victim. Don't defend yourself with emotion. State facts calmly or remain silent. This denies them the reaction they need. If they try to make you the rescuer, this is when someone comes to you with their problems, not to solve them, but to dump them, and expects you to fix everything. You can listen with compassion, but you don't pick up the rope. You can say, "That sounds incredibly difficult. I have faith in your ability to figure this out." You refuse to rescue. If they try to be the victim, this is the classic manipulator. Everything always happens to me, and it's everyone else's fault. They want you to agree, to persecute the people they are blaming. Don't step in. You can acknowledge their feeling without agreeing with their story. The drama triangle is a game of hot potato with responsibility and emotion. The only way to win is to stop playing. Put your hands down. Let the potato fall. It's not your game. In a small village, there lived a master weaver. She created the most intricate and beautiful tapestries, known throughout the land. A young woman came to apprentice with her. The apprentice was eager but impatient. One day, while working on a complex loom, the apprentice made a mistake. She pulled a thread too hard, and it caused a huge, ugly tangle in the middle of her otherwise perfect cloth. She panicked. She started pulling at the tangle, trying to force it out. But the more she pulled, the tighter it became. The threads around it pulled and distorted. The tangle grew, not smaller, but larger and more complex. Soon, her entire project was a mess of knots. She sat on the floor and wept in frustration. The master weaver came over and sat beside her. She didn't scold her. She simply looked at the mess. "You are trying to fight the knot," she said gently. "What else can I do?" the apprentice cried. "It's ruining everything." The master weaver reached out, and instead of pulling the tangle, she pushed it. Gently, she pushed the knot deeper into the cloth, creating a little slack. Then, she took a thin, pointed tool and began to patiently work at the edges of the tangle. She didn't pull. She lifted one loop over another. She loosened one thread, then another. She worked with the knot, not against it. She was slow, methodical, and completely calm. After a few minutes, the tangle began to loosen. One by one, the threads freed themselves. In no time at all, the cloth was flat again. There was a small ripple where the knot had been, but the master weaver gently smoothed it with her hand. "The thread is not your enemy," she said. "The knot is not a mistake to be destroyed. It is just a part of the cloth that got confused. If you fight it with force, you only create more confusion. You must meet it with patience, with understanding. You must see how it is tangled, and then you can help it untangle itself. This is how we must deal with toxic people. They are like knots in the fabric of our lives. Our first instinct is to pull, to fight, to argue, to try to force them to untangle. But that only makes things worse. We must meet them with the patient, observant energy of the weaver. We must understand the shape of their confusion. We must not get pulled into their tight loops. And sometimes, the most skillful thing we can do is simply push them gently aside and continue weaving our own beautiful cloth, not letting their tangle become the center of our creation. The Buddha gave another teaching that is profoundly useful here. It is called the parable of the second arrow. He said that life is filled with pain. This is the first arrow. Someone says something harsh to you. That is a dart of pain. It stings. It is unavoidable when you live in a world with other people. This first arrow is a part of life. But then, he said, we shoot ourselves with a second arrow. The first arrow hits, and we immediately react. We think, how dare they say that to me? I don't deserve this. This is so unfair. I am such a victim. This mental proliferation, this story we tell ourselves about the pain, that is the second arrow. And while the first arrow might hurt for a moment, the second arrow is one we keep twisting, over and over, for hours, days, or years. The first arrow is the insult. The second arrow is your anger about being insulted, your rumination, your desire for revenge. When a toxic person confronts you, they shoot the first arrow. It is up to you whether you will shoot the second, third, and fourth arrows yourself. The practice is to feel the sting of the first arrow. The discomfort, the surprise, the initial flash of heat, and then to simply let it be. Don't grab it. Don't pull it out and start examining it. Don't use it as a weapon to stab yourself with again and again. Just let it be there. Acknowledge it. Ah, there is the feeling of being insulted. And then breathe. And in that breath, you choose not to shoot the second arrow. This is what the monk did with the general. He felt the first arrow, the harsh words, but he did not react. He did not add the fuel of his own ego to the fire. By not shooting the second arrow, he remained free. The general, on the other hand, came with a quiver full of first arrows, but he was also shooting himself with the second arrows of his own arrogance and his need to prove himself. He was in immense pain. The monk's freedom was an invitation for the general to lay down his bow. two spiritual travelers were walking from one city to another. Their path took them through a remote valley, where they needed to stop for the night in a small village. They had heard stories that the people in this village were suspicious of outsiders and could be hostile. As they entered the village square, a group of villagers gathered, their faces hard with distrust. One of the travelers, a younger man, immediately tensed up. He clutched his bag tighter and glared back at the villagers, his body language screaming defiance and fear. He was preparing for a fight. The other traveler, an older, more seasoned monk, continued to walk with a soft step. He looked at the villagers not as a mob, but as individuals. He saw the tiredness in one woman's eyes, the curiosity in a child's face peeking from behind her mother's skirt, the guarded weariness in the men's posture. He smiled gently and nodded his head in a simple greeting. The villagers did not smile back. They whispered among themselves. The younger traveler leaned into the older one. "See," he hissed. "They are hostile. We need to get out of here. Find a place to sleep outside the village." The older monk said nothing. He walked over to a low wall and sat down, taking out a small piece of bread from his bag. He began to eat it slowly, with appreciation. A mangy village dog wandered over, sniffing the air. The monk broke off a small piece of his bread and tossed it to the dog. The dog ate it and wagged its tail, then lay down at the monk's feet. A few of the villagers watched this small interaction. The hard lines on some of their faces softened, just a little. After a while, an old man from the village approached. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. The monk explained their journey. The old man nodded. "It is a long way. The nights are cold." He hesitated, then said, "There is an empty shed at the edge of the village. It has a roof. You can sleep there tonight." The younger traveler was astonished. As they walked to the shed, he said to the monk, "How did you do that? They were supposed to be hostile. I was ready to fight them." The older monk smiled. "You saw a hostile village. I saw a village. You met their fear with your own fear, and fear only breeds more fear. I met their fear with peace. I gave them no reason to be afraid of me. I fed a dog, I sat quietly. I offered them nothing to push against." When you have nothing to prove and nothing to fear, the hostility of others has nowhere to land. It just dissolves. This is a profound lesson. Often, the toxic energy we perceive in others is a reflection of our own inner state. If we walk into a room braced for a fight, we will find one. If we walk in with open, peaceful presence, we give the situation a chance to be different. We are not responsible for their behavior, but we are responsible for the energy we bring. And our energy is contagious. Let's get incredibly practical. We've talked about the philosophy, the psychology, the stories. Now, let's talk about the technique. How do you actually do this in the heat of the moment? It comes down to one simple, powerful tool: the pause. In every interaction with a difficult person, there is a tiny, infinitesimal moment between their action and your reaction. It is a sliver of time, maybe a fraction of a second. In that moment, you have a choice. Most of us have never trained ourselves to see that moment. We react on autopilot, so fast that it feels like there is no space. Your practice is to widen that space. To stretch that moment from a fraction of a second into a full second, then 2 seconds, then 3. How do you do this? 1. The physical pause. When someone says something that triggers you, do nothing. Literally, freeze your body. Stop whatever you were doing. If you were reaching for a glass, stop your hand. If you were about to speak, close your mouth. This physical pause sends a signal to your brain, situation on hold. We are not reacting. 2. The breath pause. Take one conscious breath. Just one. Feel the air go in through your nose, feel your chest rise. Feel the air go out. This single breath is a lifetime. It is the gap between stimulus and response. In that breath, you have reclaimed your power. 3. The question pause. In that space, ask yourself one simple question. What is my intention here? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be at peace? Do I want to win an argument, or do I want to maintain my dignity? Do I want to hurt them back, or do I want to protect my own heart? The answer to that question will guide your next move. This 3-part pause, physical, breath, question, is your anchor in the storm. It is the difference between being a puppet whose strings are pulled by every toxic person, and being a free being who chooses their own response. It is the practice of widening the gap. The wider the gap, the freer you are. A powerful king, known for his wisdom and just rule, was once approached by a courtier who was jealous of the king's favorite advisor. The courtier, hoping to sow discord, whispered to the king, "Your Majesty, your trusted advisor speaks of you behind your back. He says you are a foolish king, easily manipulated." The king felt a flash of heat. His advisor was his most trusted friend. The accusation felt like a betrayal. His first instinct was to summon the advisor, to confront him publicly, to strip him of his titles. This was the reaction of a wounded ego. But the king was a practitioner of the pause, though he did not call it that. He felt the heat, but he did not act. He looked at the courtier, whose eyes were darting with barely concealed malice. He saw the game. He simply said, "Thank you for sharing your concern. I will consider this information." He dismissed the courtier. That night, the king could not sleep. The words kept circling in his mind. He wanted to believe them. He wanted to have a reason to be angry. The ego loves to be offended. But he held the pause. He sat in his meditation chamber and he watched the thoughts arise. He said, "I am foolish. He has betrayed me. I must punish him." He watched them like clouds passing in the night sky. He did not grab onto them. He did not build stories from them. He just let them be. And as the night wore on, the clouds began to thin. A deeper wisdom arose. He realized 2 things. First, he had no proof. The words of a jealous courtier were not evidence. Second, and more importantly, he realized that even if the words were true, his reaction would determine the outcome. If he confronted his advisor with anger, he would destroy a potentially valuable relationship based on a rumor. If he remained calm, he could investigate quietly, or he could choose to trust his long experience with the man over the single statement of an enemy. The next morning, he summoned his advisor. But he did not confront him. They discussed matters of the state as usual. The king watched his advisor, but he watched without the lens of suspicion. He just saw his friend, working diligently for the kingdom. The courtier, seeing that nothing had happened, grew bolder. He repeated his accusation. This time, the king looked at him with pity. "You wish me to be a puppet," the king said. "You wish to pull my strings of anger and jealousy so that I dance to your tune. But I have cut those strings. I will not dance. Your words are just wind." The courtier was exposed, not by an angry outburst, but by the king's patient, unwavering peace. The king's pause had saved his friendship, his peace of mind, and his kingdom from unnecessary turmoil. From a psychological standpoint, toxic behavior is often a desperate attempt to get the spotlight. Think about it. A person who feels unseen, unheard, or insignificant will do anything to become the center of attention. If they cannot be the center of positive attention, they will settle for negative attention. Making you angry is a surefire way to get all the attention focused on them. For a brief moment, your entire universe revolves around them and their drama. They have achieved their goal. They have pulled you into their orbit. When you refuse to react, you are refusing to give them the spotlight. You are turning off the stage lights. You are saying, "I will not make you the star of my show." This is often more devastating to them than any angry comeback could ever be. Your silence, your calm, your refusal to engage, it denies them the fuel they need. They are like actors on a stage, delivering a dramatic monologue, only to realize the theater is empty. The performance loses its meaning. They have to stop. Your peace is your power. It is the one thing they cannot take from you unless you give it to them. And the secret is, they cannot force you to give it. They can only ask. Your anger is a gift you have the right to keep for yourself. A great scholar, famous throughout the land for his knowledge of scriptures and philosophy, needed to cross a wide, fast-flowing river. He hired a simple ferryman to take him across in his small boat. As they pushed off from the shore, the scholar, feeling bored and superior, decided to engage the ferryman in conversation. He looked at the simple man pulling on the oars and said, "Have you ever studied the scriptures? Do you know the teachings of the great sages?" The ferryman shook his head, wiping sweat from his brow. "No, sir. I never had the chance to learn to read. I just know the river." The scholar gasped in mock horror. "You have never studied the scriptures? My friend, you have wasted half your life." He sat back, feeling immensely pleased with himself. The ferryman said nothing, just continued to pull on the oars. A few minutes later, a dark cloud appeared over the mountains, and the wind began to pick up. The sky grew black. The river, once calm, began to churn with whitecaps. The ferryman looked at the sky, then at the scholar. "Sir," the ferryman said calmly, "do you know how to swim?" The scholar felt a cold grip of fear. He looked at the raging water. "And no," he stammered. "I never learned. I spent my life studying." The ferryman nodded, a small smile on his weathered face. "Well, sir," he said, as the boat lurched in a wave, "it seems you have wasted all your life. For the boat is about to sink, and I am afraid your scriptures cannot save you now. This story is not about the value of study. It is about relevance." The scholar's knowledge was useless in the face of the immediate, practical reality of the storm. The ferryman's quiet competence, born of a lifetime of being present with the river, was everything. When you are dealing with a toxic person, you are in a storm. Their anger is the wind, their accusations are the waves. In that moment, your philosophical arguments, your carefully crafted logic, your need to prove you are right, all of that is the scholar's useless knowledge. It will not save you. It will only distract you. What you need is the ferryman's skill. You need to be present. You need to stay calm in the boat. You need to know how to navigate the immediate waves without panicking. You need the practical wisdom of silence, of breath, of non-reaction. This is the skill that will keep you afloat when the storms of other people's emotions threaten to capsize you. In the Buddhist path, there is a concept called the paramithas, or perfections. These are qualities to be cultivated on the journey to enlightenment. One of them is khanti, which is often translated as patience, forbearance, or tolerance. But this is not a passive, weak patience. It is not just, grin and bear it. Khanti is described as the patience of a great warrior. It is the strength to remain unshaken when faced with an attack. It is the power to not be provoked. It is the armor you wear into battle. The texts say that there is no ascetic practice quite like patience. It is the highest virtue. Why? Because it is in the fire of conflict that your practice is truly tested. It is easy to be peaceful when you are sitting alone in a quiet room. It is easy to be kind to people who are kind to you. That is not practice, that is just a pleasant circumstance. The real practice, the alchemy of the soul, happens when someone rubs up against you. When they scratch at your wounds. When they push your buttons. In that moment, you have a choice. You can react with your old conditioning, the anger, the fear, the hurt. Or, you can call upon the warrior energy of khanti. You can stand firm in your own center. You can let their words and actions crash against you like waves against a cliff, and you remain unmoved. This patience is not for them. It is for you. Every time you choose patience over reaction, you are strengthening a muscle. You are forging a new neural pathway. You are becoming a little more free. The toxic person, in their ignorance, is actually offering you a gift. They are giving you a gym in which to exercise your patience. They are the personal trainer you never asked for, pushing you to become stronger. The next time someone tries to provoke you, thank them silently. Thank them for the opportunity to practice. Thank them for showing you where you are still weak, still reactive, still attached to your ego. And then, with the strength of a warrior, choose to remain still. Choose patience. There was once a woodcarver so skilled that his creations looked alive. People would gasp when they saw his statues of birds, expecting them to take flight. A young man came to study with him, hoping to learn his secret. For months, the master had the young man do nothing but sharpen tools and sweep the workshop. The young man grew impatient. Finally, the master gave him a block of wood and said, "Carve a bird." The young man eagerly set to work. He had a vision in his mind of a magnificent eagle, wings spread, ready to soar. He attacked the wood with passion and speed, chiseling away large chunks, trying to force the wood to become his vision. But the wood resisted. It split in places he didn't intend. The wing he was carving broke off. The head looked crude and lifeless. After hours of frantic work, he was left with a misshapen, ugly piece of wood. He was devastated. He showed his failure to the master, expecting a lesson on technique. The master looked at the ruined block, then at the young man. "Your problem," the master said, "is that you tried to fight the wood. You came to it with your own idea, and you tried to force it to submit. The wood has its own grain, its own history, its own strength. If you fight it, it will fight you back, and you will both lose." The young man didn't understand. "Then how do I carve?" The master picked up a new block of wood. He sat with it in his lap. He didn't pick up a chisel. He just sat, holding it, feeling its weight, running his fingers along its surface. He did this for a long time. Finally, he said, "I am not looking for what to add. I am listening for what to take away. The bird is already in here. The wood is just hiding it. My job is not to create. My job is to remove everything that is not the bird. And to do that, I must be patient. I must understand the wood. If I try to remove too much at once, I will take away part of the bird. If I am too aggressive, I will split the wood and ruin the bird that was inside." He then began to work, but it was not the frantic work of the young man. It was slow, deliberate, and gentle. He would make a small tap with his mallet, then examine the result. Another small tap. He worked with the wood, not against it. He was revealing the bird, not imposing it. This is how we must be with difficult people. They are like the wood. They have their own grain, their own history, their own knots of pain and trauma. We cannot come at them with our own rigid ideas of how they should be. We cannot try to aggressively chisel them into the shape we want. That only creates splinters and breakage. If we fight them, they will fight us back. The art is in the patient, gentle removal of what is not essential. Sometimes, this means removing our own reactions. Sometimes, it means gently setting boundaries, which are like the small, precise taps of the chisel. We are not trying to destroy the block of wood. We are trying to reveal the peace that is already within us, even when we are in the presence of difficulty. We work with the situation, not against it, until all that is left is our own serene and beautiful center. We have traveled a long way together today. We have walked through stories and psychology, through ancient forests and modern offices. We have seen that the toxic person is not the problem. The problem is our reaction to them. They are simply the weather. They are the rain, the wind, the storm. You cannot control the weather. But you can learn to build a strong shelter. You can learn to carry an umbrella. You can learn to dance in the rain without getting soaked to the bone. The core teaching, the one that holds all the others, is this simple, profound truth: you are not required to accept every gift you are offered. You are not required to accept their anger. You are not required to accept their judgment. You are not required to accept their reality. You can stand in your own truth, in your own peace, and simply let their offerings fall to the ground at your feet. This is not weakness. This is the highest form of strength. It is the strength of the mountain that lets the storm rage around it. It is the strength of the ocean that receives a river of poison and purifies it with its vastness. It is the strength of the sky that allows dark clouds to pass through it without ever losing its essential, boundless nature. So, the next time you encounter a difficult person, pause. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Remember the monk and the general. Remember the jar of salt. Remember the weaver and the tangled thread. And in that moment of remembrance, make your choice. Choose peace. Choose yourself. Choose not to take the gift. May you have the wisdom to see the package for what it is. May you have the strength to keep your hands by your side. And may you have the peace that comes from knowing that your inner world is yours, and yours alone, to protect. Thank you for sitting with us here at Monk's Moon Temple. Until we meet again, walk gently, and breathe deeply.